In this video, we'll be looking at scary and creepy TikToks that you might not want to watch before you go to bed.
Warning, this is a story that will contain imagery that some people will find to be distressing. This is the horrifically dark history of the freak show. Freak shows were a performative convention that actually dates all the way back to the Middle Ages, but then they were revamped in the era of circus as traveling sideshows in the early 1800s. Sideshows typically made profit off the marvel of those who had extraordinary abilities or appearances, whereas freak shows specifically were exploiting and profiting off those who were born with physical disabilities or abnormalities as the rest of society would reject them. But there was one act in particular that stood out. Grady Stiles. Grady was born with a rare condition known as ectrodactyly, which fused his fingers and toes and left him unable to walk.
Mr.
You
Krabs.
quickly recognize his character, which was adapted and made very sexy by Evan Peters in American Horror Story. But the real-life story of Grady is so much darker. Because he was unable to walk, he had developed almost unnatural upper body strength, and that mixed with a short temper and a history of alcoholism, he became abusive and dangerous. In 1978, Grady shot and killed his eldest daughter's fiance on the eve of her wedding, but due to his disability, he was sent to house arrest over prison, where his abuse continued. By 1992, his wife had had a...
Wait, they call them the Lobster family. That's crazy.
enough and somehow convinced a 17-year-old who was a sideshow performer to conspire to kill Grady. Following his death, they were both caught and sentenced, leaving the story of the great Grady Stiles just as grim as when it started.
Do not watch this video unless you have a very strong stomach. This case is truly sickening. On August the 31st, 2019, Margaret Sumney was unreachable. Her family knew something was wrong. They tried and failed to get hold of her for 2 days before notifying police to ask them to do a welfare check. When police went to her house in Pennsylvania, what they discovered was horrifying. They found shattered glass all over the floor and blood smeared on the walls. They found the 67-year-old's body in the bath. She'd been beaten to death. The autopsy revealed that she died from blunt force trauma to the head. Police interviewed her son David, who initially denied having anything to do with her death. However, police searched his phone and found absolutely disgusting images. They uncovered 277 sickening pictures, including selfies of David with her body, his face smeared in her blood, and doing a thumbs up pose.
Oh, dude, wow.
Police also discovered that David was in possession of his mum's jewelry and several blank checks. He also had a record of previously assaulting his mother twice and attacking his now deceased father once. The same year as his mum's murder, he allegedly waterboarded and strangled his ex-girlfriend in an Atlantic City hotel.
Oh, this dude
it's
crazy.
reported, though, that he just slipped through the cracks in the police databases, allowing him to go on to offend again. He was soon arrested, and it was found that when he'd committed the murder of his mother, he'd taken a large amount of Adderall. His defense argued that he had diminished responsibility due to his substance and alcohol use. Originally, he was facing charges of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. However, due to a legal loophole, he entered a guilty plea, so he would only be charged with third-degree murder.
Wow.
He was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison. Terrifyingly, as he's now been in prison since 2019, and due to his good behavior behind bars, he could be released in just 17 years.
This video is called Blank Room Soup. A man depicted with censored eyes is eating a bowl of what we can assume is soup with a long wooden spoon, while two people in blank face costumes comfort him. People theorize that the man and his wife were kidnapped by the two masked men, who later murdered the wife. The bowl of soup you can see the man eating from does not in fact contain soup, but the remains of his wife. Subscribe for more.
Господи Боже, какви su ovo zvuci? Realno ovo?
What?
Kuku, gospode, ovo je horor. Horor, trauma, brate mili. Trauma.
Oh, no.
Serial Killer's Last Words, Part 1. Ted Bundy was a famous American serial killer who kidnapped and unalived numerous young women during the 1970s and possibly earlier. After more than a decade of denials, he confessed to over 30 unalivings, being committed in over 7 states between 1974 and 1978. His last words being, "I'd like to give love to my friends and family."
Wow.
This is why owning chickens sometimes can be deadly. This news is pretty recent and also very tragic. The guy to the right, his name is Jasper. And to the left is a chicken that he owned that had very, very aggressive tendencies. It's reported that the chicken ended up pecking Jasper in the leg, and when they found Jasper, they found him outside of the chicken coop with a trail of blood leading up to his body. The hole was large enough that Jasper ended up losing far too much blood for them to bring him back, which is extremely unfortunate and an extremely bizarre way to pass away.
Yo, death by chicken? Ain't that some crazy stuff? But that's some karma though. Everybody always eating chicken. That chicken got him back. What's this? Oh, for real, in the background? Look at all these crazy background images.
Are you familiar with these super dangerous toys that were released to the public? This is the Snack Time Cabbage Patch Kid. This doll's mechanical jaw wouldn't stop chewing even if a child's finger were in it. Hair was...
Yo, Cabbage Patch Kids are a little bit creepy. Like, you know that a lot of people used to believe Cabbage Patch Kids were for real? Like, that's where babies came from, was from a Cabbage Patch? These things are a little bit creepy.
Also another victim of this ever-hungry doll. Mattel banned it in 1997. Atomic Energy Laboratory. Thank goodness we have better scientific understanding since 1951. Kids were allowed to play with real radioactive materials. These kits remained on the shelves for over a year. Poisoning children. Plackers.
Wow.
Plackers were taken off the market in the United States and Canada when reports came in out of children becoming injured while playing with them. The balls would occasionally shatter upon striking each other and impale and send shrapnel into kids' faces. Subscribe.
Facts that can save your life. Part 8. If you're ever being chased by a polar bear, get completely naked and drop your clothes on the ground as you run away. Polar bears have really bad ADD, and they'll firmly inspect your clothes before continuing to chase you. Wolves will only attack you if they feel like they can intimidate you into running away from them. Standing your ground against a pack of wolves is terrifying, but eventually they will leave you alone. If you ever have to escape a moving car, don't jump out. Put one foot down and then take a step. This will significantly reduce the speed and will have a much greater chance of surviving the fall.
Ain't nobody thinking about that.
real, pasó en el cementerio de Lanús.
Walking Dead. Oh, it's zombies out here? There's zombies out here, y'all.
No creo que sea.
Yeah, what's the camera on? Oh, cameraman ain't doing a good job.
No creo que sea. Amigo, ¿quién es ese No, veo que cuchi, no, que no vengan aquí.
Oh, snap. I sent chills down my spine. There's zombies out here.
Dark story behind.
Wow.
Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty is a very famous Japanese cartoon character, so you may probably notice that Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth. Some of you may ask, why doesn't she have a mouth? Let me explain.
That's a good question.
It all started when a daughter had a mouth cancer, and the terrible things that the doctors weren't able to save her. She went to various of churches, but it didn't help, so she decided to make a deal with a demon. So, the deal was to make a cartoon character called Hello Kitty, for in order to help her daughter live. Soon, the character was made and it blew up tremendously among children. Children or kids who has an Hello Kitty doll.
There's grown women that still like that.
Didn't knew that they were playing with a demon.
Childhood actors who became murderers. Meet Ryan Grantham. Ryan Grantham starred in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie and Riverdale. But on March 31st of 2020, his life took a dark turn. He unalived his mother while she was playing the piano and was sentenced to life in prison. His reason behind doing this was because he wanted to spare her from seeing the violence that he was going to commit later on.
This guy didn't eat a single calorie for over a year straight. From June of 1965 up until July of 1966, Angus Barbary did not eat a single ounce of food. This prompted massive weight gain, and he ended up losing close to 300 pounds over the course of this year-long fast. Up here you can see the difference from when he started versus when he finished, just a year later. When he finally decided to break his fast in July of the following year, he broke it with a slice of bread as well as a boiled egg. To this, he told reporters that he was thoroughly satisfied and felt very full. I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't even last a full day without eating.
If you ever wear a hat, don't do what she did. Claire always wore a hat. She wore it everywhere no matter where she went. One day Claire went to a pool party. Her friends told her to take off her hat but she refused. Claire dived in the pool but everyone stared in shock. Claire's hat had soaked up all the water. Claire couldn't get it off her head no matter how hard she tried. The hat had soaked up so much water that Claire's head exploded. Everyone screamed in horror as mushy brain splattered everywhere.
Oh, whoa. Whoa, this person got 6 fingers. They are not human.
Never play this game with your friends. Once there was a group of girls who heard about the game Baby Blue. They didn't believe in it but thought they could scare their friend Laura. So they sent Laura into a bathroom by herself. She turned off the lights, closed the door, and put her arms out as if to hold a baby. Then started chanting Baby Blue 13 times. What happened next cannot be explained. Laura felt a heavy weight in her arms. Then she felt the weight in her arms scratching her. She was terrified and didn't know what to do. She wanted to drop it, but she was afraid of what might happen if she did, so she froze, and the weight grew heavier and heavier. Suddenly, she saw a woman in the bathroom mirror with a twisted look on her face. She screamed in terror. When her friends heard her scream, they tried to open the door, but it was locked. When they finally opened the door, they found Laura on the floor. Her eyes had been scratched out. They tried to move her body, but they couldn't, because something large and invisible was pinning her to the ground.
Historical Facts You Never Knew, Part 4. Behind me is Winston Churchill, very famously known for a variety of things, along with smoking cigars every single day and drinking copious amounts of alcohol every single day. In fact, Winston Churchill loved alcohol so much that when he traveled to the United States during the Prohibition era, he had them write up this special note allowing him and only him to drink alcohol. Alcohol was illegal during this time, so this was a pretty big deal. I'm gonna get out of the frame and let you guys read this.
I can't even see that. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what it says.
Pretty interesting. I don't know if I could have a glass of alcohol with every single meal that I ate during the day, though.
I went to Reddit to find the most unexplained supernatural or paranormal events that people had ever gone through. And this is what I found. I was annoyed with my daughter because she hadn't cleaned up her room in weeks, so when I walked by her room and saw her standing there, I assumed she was doing what I said. A few minutes later, she walked out of the shower in the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her and asked why I was looking at her strangely. When I asked her who was in her room, she looked scared too. I never figured out who was in there, but we didn't clean up the room either. 6 out of 10. Was spending the night at a friend's house as a kid around 12 or 13. Parents weren't home, so we decided to go out, do some ding-dong ditching, get into some young angsty debauchery. We get home and it's around 1 or 2 in the morning. Cue a ringing of the doorbell. Naturally, we think it's the cops or some pissed off neighbor. My friend had a small window that looked out onto the front porch and you couldn't really see into it from outside. So we took a peek at who was calling at such a late hour. Standing at the door was an old woman in a dress and a young boy in a weird newsy outfit. Both were dressed extremely out of period as it was the 90s and my friend had never seen them either in the neighborhood before. We ducked because we're a bit freaked, look again less than 10 seconds later and they're both gone. Nobody on the street walking away, no cars driving away, they were just gone without a trace. We did not sleep well. That's a good one. That was a good one. 7.8 out of 10. That one was kind of freaky, and they were all kind of freaky, but it makes sense because
if she ever asks you this one question, always say no. A hospital receptionist was working late one night when he saw a strange figure approach him in the darkness. When they came closer, it appeared to be a pale woman with a wide smile and soaking black hair. The receptionist asked the woman if she was there to see someone. She simply nodded and said, "Do you reject the Trinity?" He replied, "I'm sorry." She then slowly backed away and left. A few hours passed, and a little girl came to his desk from her hospital room. He asked her if she was feeling alright, and she said that she did not like the new nurse. He said, "Sweetie, what do you mean?" And she told him that the nurse was asking all the children the same question, and they were all chanting yes, yes, but she was too afraid to answer. The man then sprinted to the hallway where the children were staying, and none of them were to be found. The hospital then went into lockdown, and the only remains of the children were their clothes laying on their bed.
Yo, that was crazy. That person looked crazy. I don't know if that was a real person. But yeah, these TikToks are wild. I'll be honest, I would not watch these before bed. I was getting chills this entire time. It's wild. But if you like the content, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. turn your notification bell on, and until next time, YouTube, peace.